Good morning, everyone. I'm Alejandra Magana, Corporate Partnerships Manager for U.S. Soccer.
And I'm Amy Hopfinger, Director of Events for U.S. Soccer. On behalf of everyone at U.S. Soccer, we're so excited to welcome you to Nike's New York headquarters in the second annual SheBelieves Summit presented by Deloitte.
We have an amazing group of women here today from all across the country, so thank you all for traveling and spending this special day with us. Today is all about you. We want you to get involved, ask questions, challenge yourself, and challenge us. So thank you for being here, and very quickly we want to get started, get our voices warmed up and ready for the day. So on the count of 3, I need everyone to shout out where they're here from. Got it? All right, 1, 2, 3. I didn't understand any of it, but great.
That was great. Now, in case you missed it, last weekend, our women's national team wore the name of their heroes on the back of their jerseys. They took SheBelieves to a whole other level. The names ran the gamut from RBG to Beyonce to Mia Hamm. As we get started today, we want to know what your jersey name is. Who inspires you? So one more time, I'll give you a couple minutes to think about it, a couple seconds to think about it, and then we'll shout them out. Ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. More Mia Hamms. All right, nice.
I love it. So the SheBelieves movement started in the run-up to the 2015 World Cup. Our fans at games did what we affectionately call the I Believe chant. Our women's national team heard that and felt inspired, and in the run-up to 2015, a new mantra was born, SheBelieves.
SheBelieves is about empowering women and girls to be confident, be inspired, and to achieve great things. We're so proud of the SheBelieves movement and what has come to mean for so many women and girls.
Today, SheBelieves is more than just a mantra. It's a movement that includes a world-class soccer tournament featuring some of the best athletes in the world. The SheBelieves Hero Competition that honors young girls who are heroes in everyday life, the Internship program, this summit, and soon to be rolled out, a professional workshop series. This movement continues to grow, and we're excited to have partnered with Deloitte as a foundational sponsor of SheBelieves. So thank you, Deloitte, and welcome.
Okay, very quickly, before we get started, I would be remiss to not thank take a moment to recognize some women from U.S. Soccer who make SheBelieves possible. Not only do they live it every day, but they were able to deliver the event that you're at today. So if you see any of the U.S. Soccer employees today, please tell them thank you. Feel free to give them feedback, comments, questions. We'd love to hear it. Okay, enough from us. Let's get started. So we have a great lineup of trailblazers here. And to kick us off, I'd like to introduce you to FIFA Women's World Cup veteran, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. During last summer's 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia, she made English language television history as the first woman to call a men's World Cup. She'll be the lead game analyst this summer for the FIFA Women's World Cup in France on Fox. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to our host for today, Allie Wagner.
Thank you, lady. Thanks, Amy and Alejandra. I think you forgot the most important one, though. Mom of triplets. And another little girl. Morning, guys. How are you guys doing? Really? How are you doing? Okay, much better. I'm honored to be here today and really take you through, I think, what's going to prove to be an empowering and enlightening journey. We're going to go through a lineup that we have set forth, but I think it's only fitting that we're coming together the day after Women's International Day, and that's a day that was set up really to celebrate the women we are, but I think perhaps more importantly, the people we can be as we learn to coalesce our female community and take each other to places that we never even dreamed of at this point. I also want to tell you how proud I am of you guys. Give yourself a pat on the back, because each and every one of you, yeah, come on, do it. It's early, I know. Actually, you guys are all East Coasters more than likely. I'm the West Coaster. It's early for me, not you. I'm incredibly proud of you because you guys are showing that you have a strong commitment to furthering the person that you want to be, taking responsibility for trying to grasp onto tools that are going to help you guys achieve your dreams. So I'm really proud of you. Congratulations on that. You've already taken the first step. In fact, part of today, one of the things we're going to focus on is community and really learning to network. And I want you guys to turn to each other and congratulate each other. Introduce yourself. Turn to each other. Don't fake it, both ways. You got people all around you. Okay, that's enough. We're not in school. That's enough. Was that a little bit uncomfortable for you? You guys seem really amazing, actually. If that was me at your age, I would have been uncomfortable. And I think one of the greatest things that I had learned was you've got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, because that's when you know you're going to grow. That's when you know you're going to push on to do big things. And you guys are going to find, and you're going to hear from all the speakers, that's going to be a resounding theme, is get yourself uncomfortable. Put yourself out there. Put yourself in positions to achieve. I know you guys will. All right, let's move on. We're going to get to the good stuff. We've got a top-notch lineup of extraordinary women across multiple disciplines here today to share their incredible stories, their careers, and professional trajectories. And I assure you, each one will inspire you. Each will have messages for you. And if you really listen, and it seems like you guys actually do, so I think we're starting off strong, and you absorb, and through their stories, you are going to learn how to equip yourself with tools to accomplish whatever aspirations are brewing in your heart, whatever's going on in that mind of yours. All the panelists have faced challenges, professional, personal, and you will too. But these women have all managed to push through them and achieve their visions and dreams. The goal today is to help you achieve yours through their stories. Before we begin, let me give you a quick breakdown of the day's activities. We're going to start off by hearing from our keynote speaker, Safra Katz. She's the Chief Executive Officer at Oracle Corporation and a female leader in the technology industry. Following the keynote, we'll have our first breakout session. If you don't know what it is, you're going to be divided into smaller groups, which will allow you to engage more. And please do so. Use these opportunities to question, to speak up, and even feel a bit of trepidation. Again, that's a tool that you're going to take forward with you. We will then hear from our Breaking Barrier panelists. These pioneers have truly paved the way for other women and have competed at the highest levels in their respective sports and industries. They will lend their insights on how to build strong female communities and continue to lift others along the way. Finally, we will conclude the day learning from two influential women who created their own pathway to success, one of which you might know a bit about, World Cup winning head coach Jill Ellis, and the one tasked with leading the #1 FIFA ranked team this summer in France to pull off an unprecedented back-to-back championship campaign. The other, Jennifer Fisher, Chief Wellbeing Officer at Deloitte, who has a tremendous passion for advocating women's health. Sound good? Aren't you guys glad you said yes and signed up for this? Me too. All right, we're going to get started, and we are coming in hot. Ranked as one of Forbes' most powerful women of 2018, Safra Katz, the Chief Executive Officer of Oracle Company and a member of the company's board of directors. And because that's not enough, she is on the faculty at the Stanford Graduate School of Business and currently serves on the board of directors of the Walt Disney Company. Safra is a champion of industry leveraging technology to make an impact in the world of business and beyond. Among many things, Safra also helps bring technology to schools that lack access in the realm of education through her seat as chair of board of directors of the Oracle Education Foundation. So everyone, please welcome Safra Katz.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And wow, it's just great to look out at such a wonderful group of women. It's really a privilege to be in front of you all. So thank you, and thank you, U.S. Soccer, for inviting me, and our partners, Deloitte. So this is really a great day for me. I was actually asked to share the unlikely route that got me here today. And you know, many of you will kind of think back on this when you're giving your own big speeches, and you'll probably reflect back on the routes you took to get here. So let me tell you mine, and you'll see how unlikely it was. I was born in Israel, and I came to the United States with my parents and my little sister, who, by the way, is back there. And we moved. I was 5, and she was nearly 3, but not 3, as I remember reminding her. And I started first grade, and I did not speak a word of English. And in fact, I was so nervous when Dad took me to school that I got sick right in front of my classroom. And I mean it. I mean, I threw up right there. Way to make a first impression, okay? And went through devotion school, Brookline High School, public high school, had a few choices of where to go to college, got a number of possibilities, and probably instead of doing the obvious choice, I picked the school I went to visit that I thought was most fun, okay? And that was, in fact, the University of Pennsylvania. And that was a great school, absolutely fantastic. Now, I will tell you, though, that I ultimately ended up graduating the Wharton School of Business, which is an undergraduate school. But when I applied, I'd never even heard of business school or the Wharton School. But I transferred in my first year because it didn't have a language requirement, okay? Way to go. And I think they've changed that, by the way. But that was a great school. And then I went to law school. And in fact, it was such a great school. My sister followed me there, and now my nephew's there. And I went to law school thinking I was going to be a lawyer. My uncle was a lawyer, and I thought that's what you do. And all of a sudden, since I was at law school, a number of investment banks came to interview. And I'd gone to Wharton undergrad. I was a lawyer. It was the 80s. It was very cool back then. Ask your parents. And I went to Wall Street. Very, very atypical. And there I showed up. And I have to give kudos to my firm. It's a firm that's been acquired many times over now, and it's part of Credit Suisse First Boston. But my firm hired as many women as men in the investment banking class. And they really tried. But you know what? I don't know if we were so ready for it, because I can tell you the way I showed up for work every day for many years, until I was managing director probably, or maybe a vice president. I showed up in one of those blue pinstripe suits, skirt suits, white shirt, or pink shirt, or blue shirt, with one of these little ties, because we wanted to look exactly like the men as much as possible. And yet, even though we were trying to fit in, I myself, when I was at Penn, actually not only studied business, but studied computers. And just so that you probably can't even imagine, but the computers we worked on in those days were so big they'd need to be in a room like this. And we worked on either punch cards really, that we held together with elastic bands, and we did only in the middle of the night, because that's the only time you could actually get to use them, or terminals where big pieces of paper would come from the floor and be on top, and we would type into these buttons that were in fact buttons you pushed to program. Okay. So I get to Wall Street, I do a couple of leverage buyouts, and I say to myself, you know what I think's going to be really big? That stuff I worked on in college, these computers, that's going to be a big thing. And kudos to my firm, again, and my mentor, Tom Gregg, just the greatest guy. He took a chance. He took a chance on me. I thought software was going to be big. We had what was called a software analyst down in our research department, and I partnered with him. And they sent me to California to go build a business. I'm not sure they thought I'd ever come back successful, But they let me buy one of these $2,400 things called a cellular phone, okay? It was this big. You wore it like a purse. And that's how I worked. I flew to California. I had my office, otherwise known as my phone. I had a laptop that was so heavy, you'd have to check it in luggage now, okay? That's how big it was. And that's how I worked. Now, it's not clear that making that kind of a career move was the obvious choice. Once again, I did this thing that they said, go, let's let her do whatever she wants. She's gonna be a pain otherwise. Good thinking. More advice coming on that front, okay? Now, just so that you know, one of the very first deals, actually it was the second software deal I ever worked on, was this little company called Oracle. It was a database company, maybe had a couple $100 million in revenue. In fact, nearly went bankrupt in 1990, but in those days, that was the second deal I ever worked on. And working on that deal and meeting Larry Ellison, really at the very end of that deal, is probably why I'm now at Oracle after all these years. Now, just FYI, I was an investment banker for nearly 14 years. And as far as managing directors who went from associate to managing director, I was the only woman in my group that made it all the way through. So it was hard. Now, I'll tell you though, a lot of people made other choices. Some raised families, but a very large group of them now run their own funds, their own groups, and many of the women that worked under me are now very, very well known, not the least of which is Sally Krawczyk, who some of you may know came from Citibank and now runs a woman-oriented hedge fund. So let me just tell you a little bit about Oracle, because outside of Oracle Arena and probably the America's Cup sailing, you probably don't even know who we are. So let me just tell you a little teeny bit. We are about 40 billion in revenues now, and we build the underlying software from nearly everything you see and do. Your ATM card wouldn't work without the Oracle database back at JP Morgan Chase or Citi. You wouldn't be able to make a phone call because it's in the Oracle databases in some of the largest, most secure systems in the world that all the phone numbers on the planet is held. Your GPS wouldn't work because that's what's up in all those satellites. And in fact, pretty much your iPhone would be a paperweight because it's our systems and technology in collaboration, of course, with Apple that allows so many things like iTunes and iCloud and, as I said, your phone, Mac email, that's us. So, and we're very unknown and we don't mind it that way. Our people spend their time solving the hardest, most complicated problems in the world. And I've got 140,000 of them doing that. And as I probably just mentioned, we spend $5 billion a year on R&D. And currently with those 130,000+, we hire about 14 people every day of every week, of every month, of every year. We're hiring probably 14 today. So that's who we are. Now, as I mentioned, to get here in front of all of you, I made a lot of very strange choices. Probably not the obvious choice, not always for the obvious reason, but I think my job here today is to give you a little bit of advice that maybe I would have used and could have used, and at the very least I probably would have done the same thing, but nonetheless I would have thought about it a little more carefully and maybe understood it. So some of the opportunities that are open to you right now and that you should take advantage of is any time you see change. Change. You see, to be really successful, you must see change almost like oxygen. You must go for it. You must see it and not be afraid of it, but grab it and view it as an opportunity to do something differently. You need to be thinking, how do I make things better? How do I buck the status quo? I mean, look, there are three kinds of people. That's what I've noticed. There are folks who lead and change constantly. Every opportunity, they want in, and they're, you know, put up your hand. Who wants to run it? Me. Who wants to do this? Me. Whatever it is, they're the ones, they see there's an opportunity. Of course, you don't want to be obnoxious about it, but nonetheless, you want to try. Now, there are folks who, once they see it, they're going to go with, and they're going to even make it better. That's that second group. And then there's the group in the back that are so terrified or don't want any part of change. And when you go to them, they're like, nope, that's not how we do things. That's not, nope, that's not how we did it last year, and I don't want to change this year. Okay, I will tell you. First group, excellent. Second group, excellent. Third group, don't want to be any of those. I'm pretty sure none of you are that third group. And the question is, first or second, where you are and all that. I will tell you that my own management team, which is dominated by women, are in group one. In fact, being their manager, which I'm barely, being their manager is the easiest job on the planet, because every single time they walk into me and they say to me, this next budget year, I'm going to do more and spend less. And every single year, I don't have to say, hey, listen, can we do a little better? Can we? Nope. They are so self-directed, self-motivated, they make me look good, because every single time they're doing more, they're changing, they're adopting, and they're spending less to do it. And that's releasing more and more resources for us to continue to invest in innovation. Okay, now, I've lost myself because I'm talking to you instead of reading. So, all right, I think I'm here. All right, as you guys know, my path was technology. However, is technology really different? Is it like one of those where that only applies in technology, things change? I don't think so. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that all fields are open to innovation right now. Things are changing all the time. I mean, there was a time there was no Uber, there was no Airbnb, there was definitely no Waze, there was nothing. All of these different things, you had maps, there was no, you read newspapers, you went to hotels only, you got a taxi, none of it. Now, innovation and new ideas are everywhere, and so it's very, very important to understand that whatever you're interested in, there are new things happening and change, and you want to be on the forefront of that. Now, I will tell you where I really learned to understand this, and that is my other great mentor and friend and boss for many, many years, and that's Larry Ellison. And many of you probably know who he is. He's the founder and chairman and chief technology officer of Oracle. And people who know him, you know, people who see him in action, sometimes ask me, so Safra, how is it to work with someone who thinks out of the box? I have a secret to tell you. Larry doesn't even see the box. He sees how things should be without all the constraints of how they've always been done. And I try every day in working with him, which I do, work with him every day, in trying to make sure that I don't get too comfortable in my box. You know, being a lawyer, you kind of you live in a box, there are a lot of rules. I fully furnished my box. And the whole idea is, whoa, think about problems that you want to solve without thinking about how it's always been done. And that is the kind of genius that I see in him, and that I'm continuing to work on. And I really implore you to step back and think about when you're solving a problem. Now, it is also true that sometimes doing something differently doesn't work out as I'd hoped. Yeah, okay. It's not personal. Okay, this didn't work out. All right, next problem, next idea, next thing to do. You've got to just shake it off and move on. I'm sure many of you have had little disappointments, big disappointments over the years. You know what? Have faith. Have faith in yourself. Have faith in your teammates, your colleagues, your classmates, your family. Get up, do it again. The only way you know that this failure is not forever is after you've got your next success. And that's what you've got to consider doing. Now, of course, people say to me, Safra, it's easy for you. You've got power. You've got power at Oracle. You're CEO. Basically, whatever you say, go. Okay, first of all, not so. Not really so. Because that's not how you lead. You don't lead by telling people what to do. You lead by showing them the way and letting them go forward. And by the way, I got no power at home, okay? Zero. All right, just if they did what I asked, but that's for another meeting. All right, so let me tell you who's got real power with me at Oracle. The people that get things done. The folks who never let things fall through the cracks. The folks who show up on time, actually early, okay? Those folks, they've got power with me, because when I ask for something or I have an idea, they go try it out. They make it better. I've got folks who work for me who I can tell you are better than me in their field. And I collect those people. The way I've ended up where I am is by making sure everyone around me is fantastic. In fact, way better than me. So that's the way you have power. Now, what I would like to do over the next 10 minutes or so is talk to you a little bit about sort of my top 10 lessons over the years. And you don't have to write them down or anything. And I've shared those before in different contexts. But let me tell you what I always go back to. And I think at least some of them may hit a note for you that might be valuable later. So my rule number one, and I guarantee you don't have to write this down. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense, okay? Now, I know you'd think that that is incredibly obvious, but how many times have you been somewhere where there's a PowerPoint in front of you and all the colors and all the words and all the boxes fit together, and then if you take 2 seconds to really think about what's being said, they're making no sense, okay? And no one in the room wants to be anything other than a dog watching television, so then they'll just go on to the next slide. Okay, rule one, raise your hand right then, go. I'm really sorry here. You know, you just basically said a unicorn flew over the moon here, and it makes no sense because no one's seen one. And I'm pretty sure going over the moon is definitely not in the plan. And when you point, you just ask, can you explain it again to me? How did this happen? I can tell you, I've been in a lot of meetings where an entire slide deck has been prepared, dozens of pages. And on page 3, I've asked one question like, well, how would the customer feel about this? Or is this going to make our employees happier, or it's going to give them concern? Or technically, explain to me technically how those two products are going to work, because I know the technology. I'm pretty sure those two things are not going to work together. Whole meeting closes up. We're on slide 3. They go, you know, interesting question. We'll get back to you. Meeting over. That's going to happen to you. Don't be the dog watching television. If it's not making sense, I guarantee it, in the room, it's not making sense to anybody else who's listening. Listen, don't sit back, make it better. Okay. Now, second, don't stand still. Okay. What does that mean? It means make decisions. I cannot tell you how much time is spent in meetings and in classes, and especially when you get to business or academia, when you have situations where a whole bunch of people are talking in circles. You came into the meeting, circle, you get out of the meeting, the circle, no decisions made. Their only decision is let's have another meeting. Bad idea. Let's make a decision, okay? Make decisions quickly. Indecision is a major, major enemy to success, because what happens is everyone around you, especially if they're dependent on your decision, you waste so much time during this indecision period, you can't recover. If you make a mistake early, you've got time to fix it. If you've wasted all your time, too late. Indecision really is the enemy. Okay, now third, okay, not only don't stand still, this is going to sound contrary, but it really shouldn't be, which is don't chase fashion. And what I mean by that is, listen, you want to be fashionable? Go shopping. No, no. What I mean by that is execute your strategy. Of course, take in as much information about the decisions that you want to make. But if all of a sudden there's a new cool thing and it's not making sense to you, don't chase it, okay? It's going to, just because they're coining a new term, it may not be a good fit for you. It might, and then that's one thing. But if it really isn't you, don't chase fashion. Don't be this thing you're not. Keep your discipline. Now, additionally, when I say stick to your core, execute your plan, discipline's critical. And I have an addition to this one, and I'll really go into it in detail later on. But just because everyone's telling you to do something, sometimes doing nothing, deciding actively, I'm going to do nothing, is harder than anything. Just because people are pushing you, do something, and by the way, because they want you to do something, anything, sometimes doing nothing at all makes sense. And that, for example, includes getting into a big Twitter fight for no reason whatsoever. Sometimes this ain't your fight. Just step back, stay out of it, move on, execute your strategy. Fourth, style matters. And again, once again, I don't mean fashion. I mean your own personal style of communicating. Be you. And I know that's a new term, but I wrote this many years before that was an idea. What I mean by this is be authentic. It's often terrible. And as I said, I think back on showing up on Wall Street with my tie and my blue suit, trying to look like basically a man in those days so they wouldn't notice, okay? And let me tell you, not only are good ideas important, but how you convey them. Convey them with sincerity you really feel. And don't convey messages you don't feel. Be true to your ideas. Think about who you are. And sure, we can all have a little polish on how we say things. Clearly I could use some more, but nonetheless, use your own voice in your own messages. Don't be someone else. Don't pretend, okay? Fifth, if you don't ask, you don't get, all right? Now, you'd think I don't have to say this again, but I'm gonna. If you don't ask, you don't get. And that's not only true in sales and in negotiations. I can't tell you how many meetings I've sat in where we're arguing and negotiating amongst ourselves. The other side's in a totally different place or in a different room, and we say, oh, they'll never agree to that. They'd never, oh yeah, let's not ask that. They'll never, okay, let me guarantee how you will never get that. If you don't ask for it, you will not get it, full out. So don't ask, don't get. Don't negotiate with yourself. I tell my own staff, please, team, whoa. We're gonna know when we ask for it, not a minute before that. Okay, now, sixth, and this one kind of goes back on that Twitter point. And this is probably gonna sound a little counterintuitive coming from a technology person. But just because everything can be put online doesn't mean everything should be put online. I know many of you are working on your messaging and how to do, and then all of a sudden, you know, somehow on social media, there's the most ridiculous thing on there. That is going to be there forever. You can delete it, trust me, it's still there. Everyone's got, think about everything you put online as you. Is this you? Is this really you? Is this the you want people looking at and thinking about? Is this really? Or are you just in a bad mood, being really silly? Think about it before you do it. Sometimes just take a step back, take a breath, and say, you know what? No. Okay. Now, on a related note, and I hope I don't offend anyone here, but no doubt I will, the press is not your friend, okay? The press has a job to do. They have a job to do. Promoting your personal agenda is not actually their job. And there are going to be times where it feels like it and your interests are aligned, but believe me, and especially when you get old like where I am, you are basically, you know, you're one story away from a bad headline. So remember, they're not your friend, unless they really are your friend from college, and then in which case then they're not press. But they're not your friend. They're doing a job just like you're doing a job. Eighth, let me say a little, probably now it's getting really important for you. I'm going to say a word about integrity. I'll tell you a little story. A number of years ago, one of my colleagues, one of my direct reports actually now, was in a big fight in Sacramento, California. That is the capital of California, Sacramento. And he was brought in to be questioned about some contract, something. It was really more than anything else, it was an opportunity for a bunch of politicians to embarrass a bunch of executives. And top guy said to him right then, "Are you stupid or a liar?" And he goes, "I take stupid." Right answer. And I'll tell you why. Because everyone makes mistakes. Everyone makes stupid mistakes. I'm sure I'm going to make one today. This fashion choice might have been one of them, but nonetheless, you make stupid mistakes, you can recover from them. If you're a liar, you lose your integrity, it's unrecoverable. It's not coming back. So when you find yourself in one of those embarrassing, stupid situations, go, yeah, it's on me, stupid, right here. All right. On 9, you've got to have humility. The truth is, the reason I'm standing here and I got to be in front of you and got this great privilege is, I'll tell you right out of the box, is attributable mostly to the luck of being born to my parents. Both of them Holocaust survivors, worked hard, spent time with us, helping me on my homework, taking me to ballet, doing whatever I needed to do, and me and my sister devoted their time and their lives to us, okay? Wouldn't be here without them, that's for darn sure. Now, everyone in this room is smart. Every one of you is an overachiever. There's no question, you just wouldn't even be here. But the difference between those that are successful over the long term and those that are not are those that understand that all of this is often related to not only the incredible hard work you do, but some luck, some real luck. And when you find yourself being so lucky, and that includes the genes that are passed down to you and all that, when you find yourself in that lucky position and you find yourself where I am, use your power for good. Use your power for good. Because let me tell you what we're doing at Oracle. As was mentioned, I'm chairman of the Education Foundation at Oracle. And you know what we did? We decided we were going to change the luck of hundreds of students in San Mateo County, which is our county in California. And we built the first public high school on a corporate campus. It's called D-Tech High School. It is free. It is open to anyone in California with an advantage if you are in San Mateo County. No advantage if you're an Oracle employee, though. And we not only built the most forward-looking, environmentally sound high school, we built it right on our corporate campus on San Francisco Bay. We made San Francisco Bay better because we built that school. We write curriculum. The first parts of the curriculum we wrote was called Wearables. And this was a girl-only high school class for girls who had no experience in technology at all. And it matched programming, which they'd never done before, and fashion. And they built the most incredible pieces of technology, whether they were helping their blind grandmothers tell between a $5 and a $1 and a $10 bill. Yes, these young ladies that had never programmed before got to do things like that. But not only that, this course was so popular that the boys wanted in. So we now have so many pieces of curriculum. We've got girl only, we've got mixed, and now, of course, we've written all of the more advanced courses. But just let me tell you, I mean, if we hadn't decided to use our power for good like that, the kids would not have graduated. The kids who physically designed that high school with our architects graduated this past year, their first year. So we're now in year 5, public high school. And finally, whether it's in business or in school or in teams or in clubs, the bottom line is success is a team sport. And the guy who has the assist is just as important as the gal that scores. And that's just the way it is. And I know for sure that in my case, leaders are only as good as their whole team of employees. And in my case, it's over 130,014 of them today. And so I guess what I'm telling you, and I'm sure you probably concluded, are basically things you already know, which is our work is not over. Successful women, while more common, are often still the exception, not the rule necessarily. But today, it's still hard. But some days, you make a little bit of progress. And it's the events like this that you've all put your time, and US Soccer and Deloitte and Nike have sponsored here today. It's events like this that remind us that we're all in this together. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you, Safra.
Of course.
What an incredible way to start our summit off today. And Safra said, don't sit still. We're not going to. We're going to move into our first breakout session for the day. We're going to delve into 3 C's: community, career, and confidence. And I think what we heard from Safra is that she touched on all 3 of them. Confidence. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to question things. Speak up for what you want. Career. Surround yourself with the people that make decisions, that get things done. What did she say about success? That it's a team sport, right? That's your community. And lastly, with career, make weird decisions, make strange choices, and use change as an opportunity. So we're going to use this time now to go to our breakout session, take a look at your credentials. On them, you're going to see 3 dots. The first dot, or 2 dots, excuse me. The first dot on your credential is going to reflect where your assignment is now. So yellow is going to be the confidence topic, and that's going to be in the back of the room. Blue is going to correspond with community, which will be in the upstairs area. And then black, finally, will be the career topic, and that's going to be in the front of this room. We have some volunteers around here, so they're going to help you guys get to your areas that you need. So take 15 minutes. We'll meet back. Get back here within 15 minutes. Go bathroom, get water, get whatever you need, and then we're going to start our breakout session 15 minutes, okay? Go. Don't sit still.
Make my way through the motions. I try to ignore it, but home's looking farther close. when I was golden.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Is this on? Yes. So my name is Lisa Carnoy, and I'm delighted to be here with you this morning. So thank you for spending our time with us today. And because this is a breakout, and because I have a strong view that I'm going to learn a lot from each of you, and you can learn from each other, I'm also going to ask you a lot of questions. So I hope you're feeling ready to participate and share some of your thoughts. So my first question is, how many of you have a sense of what you want to do for your career? Wow. Anyone want to share what you'd like to do? All the way in back. Okay, I can't hear you. Little louder. Wonderful. Anyone else? Right here. Corporate lawyer? Therapist. Wonderful. One last one. Right here. Wow. Okay, so that's amazing. And I will tell you that when I was in college, I thought I might be a history professor, or maybe I would work in advertising. And frankly, in my senior year, I couldn't get a job in advertising and went to a number of different presentations on campus and fell in love with something that if you had asked me at the time would I end up working in banking, I probably would have fallen off my chair. I had taken no econ classes, no finance classes, no accounting classes, but when I visited the presentations for the banking programs, I thought, that seems interesting, that seems challenging, and it seems like an environment where I could thrive. So one of the things I wanted to share with you is how to really think about the content of the work, the environment, the culture, where each of you can find your kicks, if you will, and success at work. So the first topic, let me see if I have these slides, and you have a worksheet, is really to think about what it is in the content of the work. Are you someone that likes to do coding? Are you someone that likes serving customers? Are you someone that likes to create things that are visually beautiful? Are you someone that likes to write long reports? Really take this opportunity to write on the worksheet what are the things that you love doing and that you are great at doing, because that's certainly a component of where you might be successful in your career. Do you know you like to be outside and maybe be a ship captain? Do you know you like helping people and therefore being a counselor? Do you know you want to lead large groups of people as an executive? So maybe take a chance to think of, what are the 2 or 3 things that I love doing and that people tell me I'm good at. Because if your teachers, if your professors, if your advisors say, gosh, you really are amazing as an artist, or you're really remarkable in writing papers, or you do a great job leading a team, those are things that can help you think about your career. And sometimes you don't know what it is that you're good at, how does that fit in with a job choice, but I am quite sure that there are job choices that match all the things that we're good at. We're going to keep going. Another important component, though, is the environment. So you may like doing a certain kind of work, but you also have to think about what is the environment. If you're going to be out on a ship for a day or a month, that's a very different environment than if you work in a school, or you work in a corporate setting, or you work in a restaurant or in a store. So how many of you have worked in a customer service role, let's say in a restaurant or a store? I assume I did too when I was your age. And can someone share what that was like to be in that environment? Sure, right here. Sometimes scary. Why is that? Absolutely. It's a lot of pressure to be in that environment because everyone has different preferences, desires, needs. I remember I was a hostess at a restaurant, and sometimes that restaurant even had a 2-hour wait, and even estimating how long people would have to wait, and then who got the booth. And, it was a high-pressure environment, and you want to serve people and give them a good experience. But for some people, that is really exhilarating, and they like interacting with a lot of people. Anyone work in an environment that's a bit more quiet, where maybe you were doing your own projects or your own analysis more in a independent way? And what did you do? In an accounting firm, absolutely. And how is that environment? Yeah. Right. So I'm probably someone that likes a little of both. Like, I like doing my own projects, but I need people. So I'll give 2 examples. I worked at a firm where there were only 4 offices or 5 offices on my floor, and I would be in my office doing my work, but then sometimes I would come out and say, hello, 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 and I felt a little isolated. I've also worked on a trading floor. I started my career after business school on the equity floor of Merrill Lynch. There were 800 people on that floor. The average age was probably 29. People were in your face. Maybe you had about 2 feet in terms of where you sat, no offices. Candidly, I didn't love it at 7 in the morning, having all those people in my face. I wasn't a coffee drinker yet then, but actually it was very exhilarating for me to have kind of all that buzz and energy. But I'm probably somewhere in the middle. But really, you should also think about the environment you want to be in. I'll give another example. I spent my summer in business school working in a chocolate factory, and I actually liked the content of the work I was doing, going back to the prior slide, but I didn't love the environment. It was a little slow, low-key. People didn't seem so charged up, fired up to deliver for the customers or to sort of get things done in a fast-paced way. And it made me realize that even if I like the content of the work, the environment in which you do the work is important as well. Anyone else want to share a place that they've worked that maybe we haven't heard from yet? Sure. Wow. Yep. Yep. Yeah. But you, that's a great lead into the next topic, which is culture, but that's certainly a fast-paced, high-pressure environment, demanding customers, but it sounds like a great environment in terms of the teamwork of the folks that work there. Anyone else? I know this is not a shy crowd. Okay, so that brings us to culture. That's a great lead-in. And in some ways, culture is the most important thing. Culture is really hard to describe, but to me, the best way to describe it is, how do you feel when you walk in the door? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel like it's a place that you can thrive? Do you feel like these are your people? Do you feel like you can look and act and dress and speak the way that you are? When I joined Merrill Lynch out of business school, it was a very hard decision at the time. I was actually deciding between 2 firms, and every person, professor, former colleague, you name it, told me to pick the other firm. The other firm was considered more prestigious for whatever reason. But I said, I'm going to Merrill Lynch because I love the culture. I know that my job is going to be so demanding, so stressful, so hard that I want to go work at a firm where I feel that I can be me, and that I feel like the people around me are invested in my success and will enable me to succeed. This is a really intangible thing. It's a really hard thing. But I would say if you're interviewing somewhere and you feel uncomfortable, or you don't see anyone where you say, I want to be like them when I grow up, or I know I'm going to be best friends with that person, then that's not the ideal place for you to work. Pick a place where you walk in the door and you feel like you're at home. I mean, obviously it's a job, it's not your home, but where you feel like you can be at home, where, again, you feel energized by the people you're working with. You respect them because they're smart, you respect them because they're hardworking, you respect them because you have shared interests, their values, the teamwork, the energy, whatever it is that's important to you. And so I would really encourage you, as you're picking your first job, your second job, to think, and every job, you think about culture. I made a very, very big move about a year ago after being at one company for a very long time. I was making a change. And before I even interviewed, I wrote on a piece of paper, sort of like the piece of paper each of you have, what is it I was looking for? And it didn't actually have anything about industry, but what it did have were certain cultural elements that were important to me. And not surprising, teamwork was important. So a teamwork, a sense of partnership, a sense of excellence. I wanted a firm that was really excellent at what it did, and people were really striving to be great, whatever that particular field, product, service was. I wanted a firm with very high integrity, where people took their work seriously, but not themselves too seriously. So I wanted a place where I could also have some fun. But again, that's just my views. Each of you have things that are important to you. And the one thing I will say about when I was in your shoes as a graduating college student, picking my first full-time job, one of the reasons I picked the firm I picked at that time was because I saw a lot of senior women. And I thought, wow, that is a firm where women are thriving and doing well. Even if I don't stay here for my whole career, that's a place where I have a chance to be very, very successful over the long term. So that was something important to me. So really, just something to be cognizant about. What's the place that makes you feel confident, excited? That's probably the place where you should go work, even if it's two firms in the same industry. And one of the things that surprised me, as I should say, is even when there's companies that do the same thing, like the Big Four in accounting, I'm guessing that they have very different cultures, that you could walk in the door of KPMG versus Deloitte versus PwC, and you would get a completely different feeling, and they are all outstanding firms. And I want to give a shout out to Deloitte because, of course, they're hosting us today, which is fantastic. Okay. Anyone have something they want to add about culture or any question on that topic? Okay, we'll keep going. Okay, so some lessons learned. I've been in the workforce for more than 25 years, which is amazing to me because it seems like just yesterday I was in college. First thing, which may seem obvious, is working really, really hard. And I think you've likely heard this before, but you really do make an impression quickly. So in the first 3-6 months of a job, or in the first 3-5 days if it's a summer job, just make sure you're the first person there. Hopefully you're the last person there. And show a willingness to help out. So an example would be, let's say your project is, you're wrapped up at mid-afternoon. Ask your boss, ask your colleague, is there something I can do to help you? Even if it's something that may not be your specific responsibility or assignment, show a willingness to help out and work hard. And that is paramount. And through my entire career, I have been known as someone that works really hard, and that's sort of baseline, you really need to do that. Second thing is to exude enthusiasm and curiosity. If you've picked a certain job, hopefully you are passionate about the topic, you're passionate about being a counselor, you're passionate about being a ship captain, you're passionate about being an accountant. And you need to show that, and it's by asking questions, it's about doing excellent work, it's about getting to know your colleagues. And part of that is showing initiative. I have worked with many young people where I'll never forget one young person came to me and said, I'd really like to work more closely with you. And I said, okay, here's the good news. I'm going to give you some projects and you're going to get access to me. However, I'm just warning you, sometimes I'm going to ask you to do things like on Friday night that I need before a business trip on Sunday night. Well, to his credit, he said no problem. And sometimes I would ask him, I need 4 slides for a meeting in Tokyo on Monday, and he would work all weekend. So he had shown the initiative. But in exchange for that, he got exposure to the head of the group. I would meet with him about his career. I wrote him a recommendation to business school. I've been a reference for him in multiple jobs through his career, and we've developed really an intense mentoring relationship. So that's just one example of someone showing initiative. And then be known for something. So even at a junior level, you could be known as the person that really knows how to satisfy customers, the person that has the fastest cappuccino making skills, the person that has a deep expertise in a certain element of a certain industry or in a certain accounting standard. And it's something to think about. I'll give an example. When I was in capital markets, I had a passion for the healthcare industry. And at a certain point, I was able to focus on that industry, but my boss said, we need someone to focus on the insurance industry. Now, very few people grow up and think, woohoo, I want to focus on insurance. But at that time, I said, of course, and September 11th happened, which was a tragic event in our country and in the world, but there was an immense need for capital in the insurance industry. And so out of something that I didn't consider a great opportunity at the time, I became known as an expert in the insurance industry and capital raising, and ultimately developed an intense love of that industry. It's really complicated. It has 3 kinds of accounting, it has its own language, and sort of once you crack the code, you're part of this elite squad that knows it. So that's just an example of when I became an expert in something that I didn't even know I wanted to be an expert in, but really helped my career because I ultimately had a knowledge and expertise that was very rare and very valuable. And then something else is, and it really dovetails with what Safra said earlier about asking, is don't assume your boss can read your mind. I had a wonderful boss, Jeff Edwards, who's still a friend and a mentor many years later, and he is responsible for telling me that. At one point, I was unhappy about something, and he didn't know, and he said, don't assume your boss can read your mind. I also like to say, don't assume your boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife can read your mind either, but certainly don't assume your boss can read your mind. And what I mean by that is, if you would like a new assignment, or to be part of a new group, or to be transferred overseas, or go back to graduate school, or get more feedback, or you name it, please, please tell your boss. Assume she or he wants to know. And they may not always be willing or able to satisfy exactly what you want at that time, but just the fact that they know what's important to you will help them be a better boss and mentor to you. Does anyone have an example of something that they've asked a boss, or something that they've wanted but they didn't know how to ask for? Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great example. So the content of the work wasn't exactly what you expected. You wanted more programming, and you had the guts to ask. So that's great. Wonderful. Someone else had a? We have a mic here as well. Oh, good. We're going to hand around a mic. You can.
Hi, I'm Danielle.
Hello, Danielle.
I had a issue at work where I had a different responsibility, but I needed other coworkers to help me with the thing that I needed to have done. And even though I had asked for it, they weren't doing it because they had other priorities on their list. So I had to talk to my boss about how the workflow worked, so that that way she could help reinforce. She asked that from you 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Why haven't you done it yet, kind of deal.
Yeah.
So once I learned the way that workflow worked, then everything got done.
That's
and everybody was happy.
Well, that took a lot of guts as well, because you were asking things of other people, and I'm sure you did some improvements to the workflow while you were at it. Anyone else? I'm not sure if I saw other hands. Oh, great.
Hey, I'm Rafi. So I worked actually at an insurance company as a marketing intern. Not exactly what I wanted to be doing, but I did it anyways. And I was essentially doing one role. And so I asked my boss if there were any other projects related to asset management, because that's what I was interested in. And after I asked her, she put me on a new project. I didn't actually do any work for it, but I got to hear what was going on in the project, and I got to sit in on calls, which ended up being super valuable.
That's fantastic. So that's a great thing as well. Sometimes you just want exposure to things you're interested in, and if you can go to meetings with senior people, you have a tremendous opportunity to learn. I know when I started in banking, sometimes I would go to a meeting with a client or with senior colleagues, and I would say, I should be paying them. Like, this is incredible. I practically pinch myself because it was so interesting, and I learned so much. So good for you to ask for that exposure. And again, that's an example. Your boss can't read your mind. She didn't know that you were more interested perhaps in asset management, but you did get the opportunity to see that. Anyone else? Well, I think you hear that really having a sense of what you're interested in and having, again, the courage to ask. The worst thing that can happen is the boss says, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to ask the other members of the team to work with you in this project, or I'm not going to be able to get you exposure to asset management, and you're no worse for having asked. But typically, the boss is going to want to be helpful. And even if they can't do it right away, they'll know in the back of your mind that you're interested in something else or want to do something different, and they'll try and keep you motivated. Okay. So how many of you know what you're doing after college and actually have a job that you've accepted? Wow, that's fantastic. Okay, but most people are still either underclassmen or still interviewing. Depending on the environment, it can take a very long time to get a job. And I've had lots of college students come see me through the years. Sometimes they really want a job that's very hard to get. Sometimes they may not have the best experience or transcript, and it's going to be a little harder. And I remember meeting with one during a tough time in the economy, and he said, what do I need to do to get a job? And I said, you're going to need to meet 50 people. And lo and behold, he met 50 people, and he still didn't have a job. So I said, oh, sorry, I said 50, but I meant 100. And interestingly, this has now been a piece of advice I've shared many times, and I have to say, it works. And what I mean by that is if you're still looking for a job and maybe for what you want to do or because of where we are in the calendar or the business environment, the job you want is not coming to your campus or it's not right in front of you, a great way to get a job is to meet 100 people. And 100 people can start with someone that's a recent graduate that works at a company where you may want to work. Maybe it's someone, a neighbor that works in the field you're interested in. Maybe it's someone that your professor or teacher introduced you to. Maybe it's someone that went to your high school that was a few years ahead of you. There are many, many, many ways to meet people that can help you find a job. And if you're going to meet 100 people or even 50 or 20, I would suggest you create a spreadsheet so you remember who did you meet, what do they do, where do they work, what's their contact information in terms of their email or cell phone, so that depending on how long it takes, you're circling back to those people and staying in touch. And the reason why this is so powerful is even if that person doesn't have a job, you want them thinking about you so that the next time they run into someone, either at their firm, their neighbor, someone on an airplane, and they say, gosh, we have been trying for 6 months to hire a ship captain. You say, bingo, I just met someone that's fantastic and you should hire her. Or we need to hire someone for our accounting department or in asset management. They are thinking of you. As part of this, though, if you're going to meet people, you need to ask great questions. And I can't tell you how many times when I'm interviewing someone or meeting someone as part of a networking meeting, and they either don't have many questions or even any questions, or so they'll say something to me like, well, someone else already answered my questions. Okay, here's a very important piece of advice. You should never, ever, ever run out of questions. If you have an opportunity to sit with Safra Katz and you have 5 hours, you should still not have run out of questions. Seriously. There's endlessly interesting things you can ask her. How did you get into technology? How did you know you wanted to be a CEO? Do you have a favorite initiative? What do you look for in talent you want to hire? What do you do when you're not working? How do you find time to be at a conference like SheBelieves? You should literally be overflowing with questions when you go to meet someone. And so that's a lot to remember off the top of your head. So I shared a few of my favorite questions to be asked, but you should think of your own questions. And I don't really expect you to have 50 questions top of mind, but you certainly should have 3 to 5. And let's say you're going to interview at a firm and you have a series of interviews. You have 5 or 10 interviews. Even if you've asked 9 people in a row the same 5 questions, when you get to number 10 and she or he says to you, do you have any questions? Ask the same questions. You may say, well, gosh, I just asked 9 people. You will learn something different. They all have a different experience. They all have different backgrounds. And even if they say the same thing, which I sincerely doubt, it will only make you smarter when you're interviewed. So an example, when someone asks me, what makes someone successful that works for you? And then I answer that question. When she goes and interviews with the next person and they say, why will you be good in this role? You've just heard from the boss what it takes to be successful in this job. So I really encourage you, think about 5 questions that you're going to ask, and never, never, never say, I have no more questions, or I asked the people before you. And I would also say that most senior people really like to talk about their career and themselves. So a very good interview can be an interview where you're actually not talking that much, as funny as that seems. Does anyone have a crazy interview question that they've been asked, or something surprising from an interview that you would be comfortable sharing? Oh, we're going to get you the mic now. And I'm sorry, I didn't tell the squad here that I was going to be asking you questions, so thank you for finding the mics for them.
This is more of a behavioral one.
Sure.
But, explain to someone who has never heard of tic-tac-toe how to play the game of tic-tac-toe.
Oh my God. That's really hard.
Yeah.
By the way, if you ever get a tricky question, and it could be tic-tac-toe or how many gas stations in the United States, which consulting firms ask, it's okay to say, that is a fantastic question. I am so fired up to tackle that one when I have more time. Here's how I would approach thinking about that question. So never say, like, I wouldn't know, you know. But if you don't know, you can admit, you know, when I was getting asked some more technical finance questions and I had not taken finance, I would say, listen, I don't know how to do a discounted cash flow analysis right now, but I promise you I'm going to be a very quick study. But where I can add a lot of value from day one is in terms of writing, in terms of presentation building, you know, go to your strengths. But I don't think I could describe tic-tac-toe.
It was actually a written question.
A written question, oh my God. So how did you do on that?
I provided a 6-page response.
Did it go okay?
I'll know next week.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Oh, over here.
I was asked if I could be part of a cult. Which one would it be?
Which cult?
Yeah, and I was like, I mean, I don't know.
I hope you said women's soccer.
Well, like political cults.
Oh,
and I was
God,
like,
that's a tough question.
Yeah, it was very intimidating.
That is very odd. Okay, anyone else? I have one here.
The question I was asked was, if you were to pick a song, which song would describe your life?
Oh, that's good.
My answer was Go the Distance from Hercules.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so that is a very good segue to the next section. How many of you played sports in high school or college? Okay, we need a photo of that. We don't have a camera. I didn't bring out my phone. But okay, so here is something amazing, which I don't know if you knew, but 85% of women executives, and we know we have one future executive in the back, played sports in high school or college. So I don't think that's a surprise. Business is really hard work, is tenacity, is going the distance, teamwork, and just a desire to win. Any other thoughts about why so many athletic women are so successful in the world? We have someone in back here. Great. Okay, 2 in the row, so it'll be efficient with the mic.
Okay, that's good.
Obviously, the tenacity aspect is important, but just the teamwork and leadership aspects as well. I actually work right now. I'm not in college, but the teamwork and leadership aspects, having been on a soccer team, you really bring so much of that into your career, and being able to bring people together for an overall end goal is really important. So,
teamwork, leadership, focusing on a goal. And did someone else in the same room have a comment?
You can learn from your failures. So,
absolutely.
I do CrossFit, and I put it like in my career or professional life. Like, I know if I cannot get weightlifting right away, I know if I keep practicing, I will get it. Yeah. So that's how I do it, like with my career. I know if I cannot get it right away, if I keep practicing, I will get it one day.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Oh, we have some more here. You know, it's interesting. I ran track in college. I was a sprinter, but I like to hire long-distance athletes because I think they suffer. So I've hired cross-country runners and people that swim the mile, and I'm like, that is someone that is going to run through walls, literally. But I think athletes are great colleagues, and for all the reasons you mentioned, there's a reason why there's so many of us in the senior ranks. Okay.
I was also just going to add, like, everyone here who's played a sport knows that it takes up a lot of time, and so if you're not well organized and managing your time well, you can really fall behind on schoolwork and stuff. So I think that organization is really key when you get to a job that you might be working crazy hours, to be able to take time, like, for yourself, and also put extra time in after. So,
yep. I think we have another comment or two up here.
I would add the responsibility. Through generations, girls that have taken their sport extra after practice or after games and did the individual work. Yep. But now we have that as almost a standard, that if you're going to make it in college, you probably did a lot more work outside of practice. So that responsibility is coming at a younger age, and it's more, and there's a little more pressure on it.
Yep. So. Yep. And I think maybe behind. Yeah. Thank you.
I would like to add the point of discipline to time management, just because if you have to plan your time because of sports, you also have to put in the discipline to actually sit down and do what you have planned, just because you don't have the time to do it afterwards, because there's just the pressure of always being in practice and everything.
It's pretty incredible. You know, I mentioned I ran track. I didn't for my one semester because I had an injury. And that was my lowest GPA of the 4 years, which is so counterintuitive because theoretically I had so much more time, but because I didn't have that scheduling, that intensity, that discipline. And so I'm someone that I know the busier I am, the better I am. And to borrow from Billie Jean King, pressure is a privilege. So the more pressure we're under as athletes, as students, as career women, I think we really thrive. I also have another theory about why women that are athletes do so well in the business world, and that is because the language of business is the language of sports. So this is something fun. So when I was working on the trading floor, so much of the lingo was from sports. You know, we're gonna run through the tape, we're gonna block and tackle, et cetera, et cetera. Now these are some funny quotes that aren't all from the same sport. We've got blocking and tackling, which obviously is football, running through the tape, that's track, full court press, basketball, keep your eyes on the ball, that could be tennis, the gloves are off, boxing, the ball's in their court, again, another tennis, have someone in your corner, boxing, and down to the wire, which actually is horse racing. These are just 8 examples. There must be 80. And in fact, I once hired someone on our desk who was not very sporty, and he was from Belgium or France, and he said, what should I read? This was in finance. And I said, well, you should read Barron's and the Wall Street Journal, but you should also read Sports Illustrated. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, really. His name was Olivier. I said, you should read Sports Illustrated. I said, that is the language of business. That is the language of the trading floor, number one. Number two, your colleagues and clients care passionately about sports. So when you're pitching business, when you're by the coffee machine with your colleagues, 9 out of 10 of my colleagues, female or male, want to talk about what's going on, whether it's the Women's World Cup this summer in France, whether it's what's going on with their favorite, hockey team, basketball team, baseball team. In fact, when I used to be on the road pitching business, I would look up the sport schedule and results of the local team. So if I was going to Cincinnati, I would actually look up, what are the Bengals or the Reds doing, and if it was, in April, I knew that they have actually a parade for opening day for baseball in Cincinnati. How cool is that? But whatever it was, that's just one example, and when you're talking to clients, colleagues, most people, I'd say 90% of people in business, care about something in sports. And by the way, it could be that they do CrossFit, or they cycle 50 miles on the weekend, or they support a certain team. But being comfortable with the lingo of sports, being comfortable talking of sports, having a sport that you love and support, that's actually a very easy way to build relationships. I actually find another topic that's really easy to talk to people about is their vacation. Like every human being either has taken a vacation, will take a vacation, or would like to take a vacation. So it's a very easy thing to say, any plans over spring break or any plans this summer? And again, that's another example of something that 9 out of 10 people will be delighted to say, yeah, we're thinking of going skiing, or, oh, I'd love to go to Florida, or nothing planned now, but hope to do something over the summer. Okay. So as you think about your career, and not just your first job, but your career, I really advise that you build what I call your personal board of directors. So many people talk about mentors, that's important, but a personal board of directors is empowering for a few reasons. One, it doesn't need to be all senior people. It could be a boss, a former boss. It could be a neighbor who's someone you admire. Maybe it's your best friend from high school's mom or dad who's in a field you're focused on. It could be your classmate. It could be someone you meet here today at this summit. When I think of my personal board of directors, the other thing I would say is it evolves. I've had people that are very important in my career who have subsequently left the industry or left the firm or retired, and maybe they're not as critical in my day-to-day. So that's why I suggest you should have a group of 6 to 12 people, because I promise you over 5 or 10 years, that group will evolve, and you never want to get to the point that you have no one. Some of the best professional advice and support I get are from friends that do very different things. So while I have been in finance and business my entire career, when I think of my personal board of directors, it includes a high school teacher, a head of an all-girls school, someone who's a professor, someone who is in a consulting firm, and someone who works in HR. And the point to that is to say not everyone needs to be in your field, but I really gravitate towards folks that are successful in what they do, who have a sense of mission and purpose, that are upbeat, and that know me well. And what I have found from these folks is that they do different things at different times. Sometimes you need someone that cheers you on because maybe you got some bad news at work, you didn't get the promotion you wanted or the raise, or it's not going well, and you need someone to say, it's okay, keep going. Sometimes you need a kick in the pants. Sometimes you need someone to say to you, hey, Lisa, you've been miserable in that job. You need to move on, or you need to ask for more. You need to make a change. Sometimes you need a sounding board. So you need different things at different times, but really think about who are the people you trust, that admire, that know you well, that have your back. And I would suggest you actually start a list and think, who are my board of directors? And it's not something that you ask someone, hey, Susie, will you be on my board of directors? I've never had that conversation. It's more that who are the people that are invested in your professional and personal success that would do anything for you, so that if you say, oh my God, I have a really critical decision to make tomorrow, the company wants me to move to Hong Kong, can you get on the phone? Or I'm thinking of quitting my job, or how do I ask for a raise? Or I'm thinking of going to graduate school, that these are the people that you'd really like to ask for their advice. And again, you would do the same for them. So they are really both your friends, but they serve a specific role in thinking about your professional success. And this is not something that I was thinking about when I was your age, but something that has evolved over my career, and again, is simply invaluable. And I would say you could really look very far afield. It could be a relative, and again, a neighbor, someone you know and admire and like. And so this is something you should think about now and continue to think about over the coming years. Anyone have someone now that they view as an advisor or a mentor or on their board of directors? Right there. Right in the middle, sorry.
My coach, who's
wonderful. Right there. Yay, I love that. Well, that's fantastic. You're very lucky, and that's wonderful. And you can have that relationship forever. So kudos to you. Anyone else? Okay, right here in front.
My former boss, he brought me into the field, and he's been a great sounding board, especially now that I'm looking to change jobs.
That's wonderful. So there's a young woman that I helped bring into Bank of America Merrill Lynch about 5 years ago, and subsequently we've both left the firm. I'm now at Alex Partners. She's now at a small PE firm. She's coming to see me on Tuesday afternoon because I'm still a mentor to her, even though we don't work at the same firm. We've both moved into different directions, but I'm very happy that that relationship will endure. And I'm sure your former boss also gets great joy and satisfaction in maintaining that relationship. So really great. Anyone else? Right here. And you have to tell us how you decided to be a ship captain.
Well, that's why my mentor is actually my chief mate, who is also one of my professors in some of my classes.
That's wonderful.
And yeah.
That's great. Okay, we have one more in back. Oh, and here in front. And right next to you. Sorry.
My university senior woman administrator. She wasn't my coach directly, but she was a coach at Stevens, but she advocated for so many athletes that weren't even on her team.
So I went to Columbia, and there's a woman, Jackie Blaquette, who's the equivalent, and I mean, she's been a mentor and advisor to me for 30 years. And to think about the thousands of women athletes and male athletes, but that she has advised, mentored, helped, it's staggering. It's amazing. Okay, we have a few more here and in back.
My guidance counselor, she's really helped me out since I still haven't graduated high school, and I still haven't really gotten to touch upon life just yet.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of still new to all of it, but she has really helped me in kind of skipping the grade and graduating this year, so it's been really tough. So she's like someone I kind of have on my board of directors in a way.
That's wonderful. Well, you should thank her, and that's extraordinary that she's helped you in that way. Okay, I think we have one more in back. Did I miss someone? Oh, good.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you ask someone to mentor you, or you think it happens natural?
That's a great question. So I've been part of many formal mentoring programs, both as the mentee and the mentor. And I would say my personal experience has been sort of mixed. From my view, from my view, it works best when it's organic because you have a shared interest. You've worked on a project together. You've been on a team together. Maybe you have a shared passion for CrossFit or soccer, or you grew up in the same place or something. So for me, the most successful mentoring relationships both ways have been where it's more organic. But I know a lot of people had success when they've been formally matched in a program, and it's okay to ask someone. I've been asked many times. Sometimes I've had to say to people, listen, I don't have a ton of time, but I'm happy to be a resource to you if you need advice, if you need a call, if you need some support. But at this point, I don't have, I'm not going to be meeting with you every month. And to make sure there's sort of shared expectation. But I think it's an honor to be asked to be a mentor, and most people would really appreciate it. I would just really focus on someone where you think, again, that you have sort of a shared spirit and they're invested in your success. So be thoughtful. And by the way, you can have more than one mentor. So thank you. So that's a great lead in to where I wanted to finish, which was with questions. So I know I've asked you a lot of questions, but are there any questions that any of you have in our final couple of minutes on your careers?
So I have a prepared one.
Great, thank you.
So I read in your bio that you worked on a women's leadership council for athletics.
Yes.
I wrote a paper with a professor of mine on millennial D1 through D3 athletes and what their perceptions of leaders were. And the answer that we found most resounding was that they viewed leadership as someone who takes up a cause. So in your experience with that leadership council, what did you find?
So when I went to Columbia, my first year, the seniors were all men. Columbia had just gone co-ed, which is sort of amazing. And the women's teams were very new. We had been D3, but then became D1, but we had just a few teams. Frankly, we were not very good. And while it was a significant part of my experience, it wasn't, there wasn't so much support and history with the women's teams because we were new. So when I was out of school about 20 years, a group of my sort of peers, meaning my generation, so I ran track, some friends from the tennis team, we said we successful women should give back to the current women's athletes and raise money for women's sports. And let me just give you a sense. The year we started this, which was 11 years ago, Columbia raised a total of about $50,000 for women's athletics. This past year, we raised close to $1 million. So it took us a decade, but that is quite a ramp. And how did we do it? We developed the Women's Leadership Council for Athletics, and we said, hey, women graduates, it's time to support our women's teams. And we would do events. We do an event in the fall with the coaches and graduates that support, and other friends that support the teams. Sometimes in the spring, we do a luncheon that has more of like a speaker series, that sort of thing. And then we do events where we go back to support the teams and the women get together. And I have to say, of all the ways I've been involved in Columbia, and I'm now co-chair of the trustees, this is one of the most meaningful things I have done. When I go to these events, the esprit de corps in the room, and it's not just with my teammates. I could be talking to the women's field hockey coach. I could be talking to a recent alum who played soccer. But women supporting women, it just doesn't get better than that. And, I see this in all ways in my life. Last March at the SheBelieves Summit, the next day we had one of the matches. Our women's national team was playing France out at Red Bull Arena. I went. And who was sitting next to the seats that I was in? The women's national hockey team, just off their gold medal in the Olympics. And I thought, wow, women supporting women. I had the chills. It was fantastic. They were thrilled to be there. Of course, we all wanted to touch their gold medals and meet them. But that's just, there are many examples of women supporting women, women lifting up the next generation of women. It's something that certainly is a cause for me and something that inspires me. But the Women's Leadership Council at Athletics at Columbia has been very successful. And it's something that I would be happy for all schools to replicate. There's no, we didn't trademark this. This is something that should be borrowed and improved upon at many schools. And the money that we've raised enable our teams to do things like go on spring break trips, buy a new van, maybe hire an assistant coach, buy some new equipment. So it's really having tangible effects on our programs, and our programs have never been more successful. So, anyone else? Okay, right here.
Hi, my name's Elena. I just started my full-time career, and the transition from student to full-time employee has been interesting. I found that the path in school is much more linear, right? Like you have things that you're supposed to do each year, and now in the workforce it's much more open-ended. So I have colleagues that are studying for their CFA, colleagues that are leaving to go to PE firms, to go to business school, to go to startups, and so it's all very interesting, and I'm not exactly sure what my step is that I want to be working towards. And so I'm wondering if you have a view on or any advice on how to set long-term goals when you might not exactly be sure what should be next for you.
Right. Another great question. So I'd say a few things. One, believe it or not, I rarely set long-term goals. My view was I want to be the best I can be at the level I'm at. So if I was an associate at Merrill Lynch, I wanted to be rated the highest and paid the most for an associate at Merrill Lynch. I wasn't even necessarily focused on when am I going to be a VP or did I want to leave. I just wanted to be great at what I was doing, assuming I was loving the work. If I were you, I would give yourself 2 or 3 things that you would like to accomplish over the next year, so that if we're sitting here in March of 2020 and I say, how's it going? I say, God, it was such a great year because I developed my expertise on this, I got to work on a project like this, and I built relationships with these people, or whatever it is. So that way you know you're making forward motion. At the same time, I do think it's important periodically to step back and think about, should I get my CFA? Should I go to graduate school? Is this field the field I want to stay in, or should I be looking at PE or something else? But believe it or not, for me, I was more in the keep your head down, work hard, and good things will happen. And then if I saw something I wanted to do, I would raise my hand and say, you know, I'm ready to do more. I'm ready to travel. I'm ready to, whatever the case may be. But make sure that you're learning and advancing this year so that next year you feel like you've made progress.
Thank you.
Do we have time? We're okay? We have to wrap it up. One more question. Okay, who's next? Who did you didn't ask a question yet, so this woman in the middle here.
Hi,
Hello.
my name's Danya, and I had a question about interns and internships. So I have an internship coming up this summer, which could potentially turn into a full-time position.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, as an intern working alongside other interns, what I can do to sort of just make yourself stand out or build a good relationship with the company so that that can turn into a full-time.
Absolutely, and I'd say more and more full-time jobs are determined through the summer internship. I think it's the same thing. It's the coming early, staying late, showing enthusiasm and curiosity. And I don't know if this internship has a project as part of the structure, but if it doesn't, I would very early ask your boss, I would love to have a project. And so it's something that you present at the end of the summer or you put together. It will give you a tremendous sense of accomplishment and will really show what you've learned and what you could contribute to the company. So I would definitely try and do a project if you can. And to the extent that you know midway through the summer that you would like to return there full time, don't be shy in saying so. I'm sure you'll be assigned either a mentor or a go-to, even if it's your boss, and to say, you know, I'm really loving it here. I would like nothing more than to return full time next year. That's a great thing to hear, and particularly if they don't have positions available for everyone, knowing that you'll say yes is something very powerful. So good luck. I think we need to wrap up. I want to thank you all. It's been wonderful being with you this morning, and thank you.
The light that shines within. There's a
Keep the music on. I like it. It's a little old, actually. Welcome back, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed your breakout sessions. You guys had an opportunity to interact more, and hopefully you picked up on some elements of how confidence and community will help you guys in your career going forward. But now we are going to go on to an exciting part of the day. We're going to have our first Breaking Barriers panel. These women have all faced massive challenges in their careers, different reasons, and they've all rose above and overcome. So please join me in welcoming first Katie Sowers. She's the offensive assistant coach for the San Francisco 49ers and actually the second woman in the NFL to hold a full-time coaching position. Please, right there. I'll forgive you for not being a Green Bay Packer coach. Maybe that'll be your next step.
I worked with the head coach.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We'll talk more about that later.
All right.
Next, join me in welcoming Ibtihaj Mohammed. Named to Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential list in 2016, U.S. Olympic medalist in fencing, and entrepreneur, she recently launched her own clothing line. Hi. Yeah. Next, we have Kat Hosroyar, head coach of the Iran U19 girls national team. And the first Iranian woman to get her FIFA A coaching license at age 26. And last but not least, we have Crystal Dunn. U.S. women's national team, shall I say defender, midfielder, forward, soon to be goalkeeper, we'll see. And 2015 NWSL MVP, Golden Boot winner, youngest to ever achieve that, and last year's NWSL champion. So welcome, everyone. All right, Crystal, first I'm going to start with you. All right, well, we'll see. It's been well documented you've had to battle for equality in women's sports. What do you think is the best way to speed up this process, and what have you seen makes the biggest gains?
I always think continuing the conversation and, not being afraid to speak out and, pull someone aside and say, hey, I have this idea. I think things, can change. What do you think? And I think what definitely helps me get the conversation going is feeling confident and comfortable reaching out to those around me who feel the same way and are willing to, take action.
How difficult is that in an organization that you might not have a ton of power in, and you're maybe not in a position where you can make change personally?
Yeah, if I feel like I don't have the power individually, I do think it's important to take those steps to reach out to someone who you think could help get that conversation started even quicker. And like I said, it just starts with a conversation. It starts with you showing your passion and not being afraid to, not feel like you can make that change and just step out yourself and fight for what you believe in.
A lot of that sounds like even being a mentor for others. In your life, have you had a mentor that has guided you and really helped you to get to where you are today?
Definitely. I think it's so cliche, but I feel like I've always, valued and respected how my mom kind of raised me and always taught me to, not be afraid of being different. And if that means standing up and sticking out, that means that's exactly who you were meant to be. And from a young age, I always felt like, I was comfortable in my skin. I was, pretty quirky and weird at times and things like that. But I felt like it's most important to be yourself and, fight for what you believe in. And if, others around you don't have the voice, then you need to be that voice.
How were you quirky and weird? Give us one.
Well, this is embarrassing.
It's supposed to be.
Everyone who knows me knows that I just love music. I honestly was thinking that if I didn't play soccer, I'd be an entertainer. I'd be a backup dancer somewhere. But
I think you got a stage. No, let's see it. Come on.
There's no music. I can't.
I think we can change that.
I didn't hook my.
I want you to think about that. I'm gonna get music on in a little bit.
Okay.
You're stepping up. All right, Kat. As head coach of the Iranian U19 girls national team, you have been a leader to many young women. What is the current state of affairs in Iran with regards to access and support in football?
This is a great question because, you know, I don't think people, especially in the U.S., understand, you know, how easy it is to play sport here. If you wake up one morning, you're like, oh, I want to, you know, get a soccer ball, go on the field and start playing. It's so easy. The access is easy. Whereas in Iran, you know, whenever football started 14 years ago, you had to get permission to go get a pair of shoes, to go get a ball, to go find a field to play in. But over the past 14 years, whenever soccer started initially, you know, you see the growth of popularity. Because I don't know how many people here have Iranian friends, but during the past World Cup, you know, Iran, you know, was in a very tough group, Portugal, Spain, and Morocco. And this is whenever the world found out how Iran runs in Iranian, or how, you know, football runs in Iranian DNA. And I think because of that popularity, it has helped, you know, women to, you know, have a platform for sports, not necessarily just soccer, but it definitely does make the process easier because the men have, you know, have gained so much popularity. So that's actually helped women become uplifted in it as well. But, you know, it's been a long road. I can't say it's always been easy. It's been a lot of ups and downs, and it can only get better from here and just move forward.
Well, it's funny because I know some of the Iranian men's national team players were speaking up in support of you guys because they wanted you to be able to go and watch football matches live in stadiums. Can you speak to some of those challenges that you still currently face and not being able to witness those events?
So, I mean, how many of you here love going and watching a soccer game? Like, I'm sure all of you want to go see that. But in Iran, it's a bit different. You know, women were not, or are not allowed to, you know, enter the stadium, and it's a pretty big place. 100,000 capacity. So for the past, you know, few years since I've moved to Iran, it's been every day, you know, talking, discussing, arguing, negotiating how to come to terms with women entering a stadium. And just a few months ago, the first time in 40 years, women were allowed to step foot inside the stadium. And, you know, it's pretty awesome to have that happen as well. And it's happened now twice. So we're pushing the boundaries. We're trying to, you know, convince officials. But to be honest, 90% of the people agree to this. It's just a few that we have to convince.
How do you? What does that look like? I think we'd all want to know how do you enact this vision that you have?
I mean, okay, we're coming from a Middle East background where, you know, especially in Iran, women, you know, you would be portrayed as, you know, why do you even want to play sports? You know, go do something better with your life. Go be a doctor, an engineer, or whatnot. And I think the whole cultural aspect of Middle Eastern women getting involved in sports is, you know, it's on a move. And this is where we can convince the male officials that, you know, women want to have the same, you know, platform to enjoy. You know, maybe you don't want to play soccer, but you want to go watch it. So I think, you know, just by showing how popular it is amongst women in a country, especially in Iran, that's going to help be the convincing factor. And, you know, just to show that, you know, women are very interested in it, women want to be more involved in it. And, you know, for example, the national futsal team, they became Asian champs twice. And before that, no one knew that women even played or touched the ball. So I think with, you know, our hard work and our training and, you know, winning medals, this is where it's going to help us to gain that attention to be able to have easy access to stadiums.
Are there performance challenges that players face wearing a hijab while they are playing?
So currently, the thing that I can say is the material. The material is a huge barrier in our performance because obviously Iran is a country that doesn't get sponsorship from like Nike or Adidas, so we don't have the, you know, the comfort of having like the cool down or the heat effect.
The wicking material.
Exactly. So when you sweat in our jerseys, the sweat stays right there. And, you know, the countries that we're playing in are, you know, 110, 115 degrees, you know, climate. So imagine playing that with polyester from head to toe. But that's, you know, where our training comes in. We know we have, you know, to push against a lot of our boundaries. So we train harder to be able to forget that we're playing with such a you know, outfit. But, you know, it could also be in our benefit. Like I just came from Russia with the U19 girls. We had a friendly tournament there. It worked in our benefit because it was really cold there, so we were covered. But I can't say that for the other countries that are quite hot.
Yeah. Awesome, thank you. And Ibtihaj, you know something about competing in a hijab. You were the first American woman to do so in the Olympics. What challenges did you face to get to that point?
So I was competing in a sport, the sport of fencing, where I was, one of one. There are not a ton of, not just African Americans, but people of color in general. I'm also the first woman of color to represent the United States women's saber team. Before me, there had never been anyone, and my first team was in 2010. So it's not just breaking that barrier in your mind, not seeing anyone who looked like you present in that space, but it's also, pushing past that barrier and showing other people that you belong in that space. And there was a lot of pushback, not just from other fencers and referees, but even from coaching staff, people not wanting you to occupy that space because in their mind you don't fit. And I, similar to Crystal, just never really cared what other people thought. I felt like I was doing my own thing, and when people tell me no, I tend to want to prove them wrong, and I just, found motivation in other people's doubt.
That makes sense. And Crystal as well, when you're in these situations and you're not worried about whether people are thinking, if you will, what is the basis of that confidence? Is it what you were born with, or is it your preparation? Where do you get that from?
It's definitely something that I had to learn. I spent many of times when I was younger crying and feeling really frustrated at the discrimination I was feeling. And one of the crazy things about feeling or having that sense that someone dislikes you or is mistreating you or not giving you the point, like in my sport, it's very subjective. You can have an official who may not like what country you're from, who may not just like you, or doesn't like your style of fencing and can withhold your points, give them to your opponent. So even as a professional athlete, I've had these moments where I feel frustrated, and I don't want you guys to think that I was born with this confidence and I haven't had tough moments. It's definitely something that my parents instilled in me, that you can't complain, you can't be frustrated, you can't use that as an excuse, you can't use that as a crutch, I've just made the decision to be strong, and I've made the decision to occupy these non-traditional spaces because I feel like I have to do it for all the young girls who come after me. Just because I'd never seen a Muslim woman do it before doesn't mean that it couldn't be done.
Yeah, that's great. And you speak to perhaps your community. Were your parents your community? Because when you're saying judges, when you're saying there's these other athletes that don't want you to occupy that space, there had to be people around you that were also supporting you and lifting you up. Who would those people be?
Oh man, I've been blessed to have people in my life who believe in my goals and ambitions. A lot of the women have spoke to not doing what's the norm in their societies, whether that be, pursuing a MD, PhD, or just something totally out of the norm. And for me, it was, deciding, okay, I want to pursue a national team. My family, no one had done that before. My parents and I also thought I was going to be a doctor for a really long time. And somewhere at Duke, I decided I wasn't doing that. And I looked at Team USA and saw that there had never been anyone who looked like me on the women's saber team. And I thought that's absolutely crazy. I had no world ranking. I had no domestic ranking. I'd never been to a senior competition before, but I knew what hard work looked like. And I just kind of threw caution to the wind and decided I want to be that person.
Is that how you started your clothing line?
Well, I don't know. I'm that person who thinks they can do anything.
You're gonna do, sounds like
I can do anything. There is no one in the United States doing modest fashion in a cute way, in my opinion. And my sisters and I kind of decided we would do that. My company, Luella, has been a lot of fun. And one of the cool things about sports is that it teaches you not just hard work, but how to push through obstacles. And initially, I knew nothing about running a small business, but you learn day by day.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Katie, you know something about trying to push social norms. You broke into a male-dominated industry. How difficult was that for you, and really what were the obstacles that you faced?
So I would say getting started, hi everybody, first of all. Man, are you guys awake? It's almost lunch. But first of all, getting into a male-dominated field, the main problem that I really encountered was that I didn't understand that that opportunity existed. And like all of these other women are sharing, you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't see it, you don't know that it exists. I knew I always wanted to coach. I knew I loved football from an early age. I have journal entries where I would say, oh, well, I guess since I can't play football, I'll play baseball, or I'll play basketball. I love baseball too, but that's a whole nother story.
Notice she didn't mention soccer.
Yeah, no, but well, that's a whole other story.
We have time to shift her, right?
Are we talking about football or football? I'm confused. But I get really confused right now.
You play football with your hands.
That's a whole nother conversation that we can get into later. But, and it wasn't until Becky Hammond started coaching in the NBA that I had come around. I came back. I was playing adult women's tackle football, and still I didn't even think about coaching football at that level. And then I saw her and I thought, oh my gosh, how have I not thought about this? And it's because there was no visibility, there was nothing there. And if you guys think about it, like you drive through McDonald's, you order a Happy Meal, and they ask if you have a boy or a girl, and based on whether it's a boy or a girl, they think for some reason they have a better chance of understanding what your child wants. And you go to a store and you walk through the aisles, and there's a girl aisle and a boy aisle, and if you think about that in life and how many opportunities we're limiting based on those. Like if we opened up those aisles to everybody and we let kids, I'm preaching to the choir right now, but if we let our kids know that every aisle was open to them, we are giving them so many more opportunities. And if I would have known that that was an option for me, I probably would have broken earlier. Long story short.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm okay with opening up every aisle as long as the price range is under like 50.
Yeah.
Okay, I got 4 kids.
And on sale, it's fine.
Yeah. I'm sure there's been a lot of preconceived notions, however, that you fight when you're in this industry that perhaps you don't know as much as men. How has that been? How do you navigate that?
It's interesting, and I think this is kind of a societal norm, is what I've found, and it's not necessarily with one organization. Oftentimes, we as women, it's assumed that you don't know until you prove that you do, whereas men come in and they know until they prove they don't. And so you fight that balance, but then there's also something that you have to keep in mind that we also tell ourselves stories. There's the facts and there's the stories. And I think oftentimes, a lot of times women too, will tell a story to ourselves. Someone gives you a report or, passes you on a report, and they say, you think to yourself, well, they didn't give me that report. It's because I'm not good enough. They don't think that I can do it. And the fact is you didn't get the report. The story is what you tell yourself. So you balance those because, sometimes the story you tell yourself is true and sometimes it's not. And we really just have to communicate and get to the bottom of it.
But at the end of the day, would you say that you still have to work harder than the man sitting next to you? Or would you say, no, it's equal?
I would say that I need to prove myself. I need to go above and beyond to prove because especially football. A lot of people don't even know women play football. And I'm talking about American tackle football. I'm not talking about football. I love football, but
we don't say it that way. By the way,
well, that's why I try to emphasize. It's the way of because nobody understands. I say I coach football, and they're like, oh, like soccer, and I'm like, no. I don't even want to hear it from this side over here.
I'm like that.
But yeah, I would just say that in order to prove that I know what I'm talking about, oftentimes I do, people don't think I've played. And I even told someone I played on the USA football team, and it wasn't until, 30 minutes into the conversation, they thought I was talking I played on the USA soccer team, which would have been so cool, but I definitely did not. And he had just assumed that I had never played football, even though I was there coaching football.
Right, and that's what's so important about what you ladies are achieving. It's you guys are pushing and making this the norm now, so that the next generation doesn't actually have to prove anything; they just will be.
Right.
For all of you guys, I now want you to answer this question, and it's: if you were to look back on your career and there was one decision that you could make differently or something you would do differently, what would that be? Let's start with you, Crystal.
Putting me on the spot on this one.
Okay, we can start. Do you want to dance first, or do you want to?
I'll dance in a little.
Okay.
I would say just to enjoy more of the game. I think at times, you know, we're so tense, and, you know, especially as women, we always feel like we have to overprove, And I think there's been some glimpses in my career where, you know, I almost forget why I fell in love with the game of soccer, you know, and I think, you know, that's what keeps me sane now, is just really knowing, you know, I try to always set a good example for those that want to walk in my shoes, and it's important for me to remember that it's a fun game, you know, and you know, when you put your all into something, good things happen, but sometimes good things don't always happen. You're gonna have a mishap in a game and things like that, and I think just to spend limited time in the lulls is what I've always wanted to kind of work on, and I think in the past I've spent too much time in the low moments, and instead of enjoying this game and loving it for all that it gives me.
Would you say that right now, as you're 3 months out from a World Cup, that you're having to learn that lesson again right now? Or would you say that right now there's something else going on inside you that you're working on?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, we're 3 months out. I hope you guys all know that World Cup is coming. So 3 months out, football. It's coming, and, you know, with that comes a lot of stress, you know, comes a lot of nerves, maybe some doubt along the way, but I think for me it's always important to just, you know, feel confident in myself, and regardless of external factors or critics or anything like that, it's just important to stay true to yourself and know your value. I think everyone here has a purpose in life, and it looks different in so many different ways, and, you know, we're all here for so many different reasons, but ultimately just finding yourself and knowing your strengths and also acknowledging your weaknesses is important. And I think going forward for these 3 months it's just fine-tuning things that I might not be amazing at, but not discouraging myself and feeling like, you know, I'm not where I need to be. Like, the journey is going to be amazing, and you just got to embrace it.
And flashback 4 years ago when you missed out on selection. Now, knock on wood, you know, yep, we're not going to. It looks like you're certainly a starter at this point. What has changed for you to get yourself into this position?
Just self-belief, I would say. You know, I think, especially as women, you know, we almost come into the world feeling like we just have to do so much extra that, you know, men don't have to think about or anything like that. It's almost built in us to be like so hard on ourselves, you know, and I think 4 years ago I was so hard on myself. I didn't feel valuable, and I think that was what the hardest feeling was when I didn't make the World Cup roster, was feeling like, you know, all my hard work up until this point like means nothing. And I think once I got out of that embarrassing state, I was like, I'm okay. You know, I actually went on to actually have the most successful career year, and I think that's a prime example of turning a not so great situation into like something that's incredibly amazing. Not that I really could ever forget about the Women's World Cup in 2015, but because it ended on such a high for me, and not even being a part of that event, I was like, I was okay. I was okay that I missed out, because it gave me that reality check of, you know, bouncing back from a challenge.
That's great. Kat, for you, anything in your career that you would do differently?
There's several, but the one that is right up here. So 2011. The Iran national team was disqualified from participating in the second round of Olympic qualifications. And this was due to the hijab. And, you know, we spent so much time, you know, apologizing to like the host nations that, yes, we have to wear the hijab and all of that. And mind you, I'm American raised, and I was raised here, but I wasn't raised with the hijab. So to be able to like play here without it and then go to Iran and play with it, I didn't really feel the difference as far as the passion. And you spend so much time apologizing, and I remember whenever we were disqualified, they told me directly, don't fight it. I really wish I would have fought it harder, because it would have taken less time to get an entire nation back on the football map or the soccer map. And I was young, you're naive, you know, you take, you know, your elders more seriously when they tell you no. So next time someone tells me no, I will be like, I'll take that as a cue for yes. But yeah, I should have fought harder at that age when they disqualified us to get Iran back in, because it took a couple years before we were able to compete internationally.
And you said there was something else. Was there another one that you thought of?
Oh, there's a lot, but probably not for behind cameras, but it's better.
Fair enough. Ittihaj, for you, anything that you would look back and do differently?
I mean, I don't know. I am listening to the other women and thinking about moments where you have these lows. And I had an epiphany at some point in my career where I just decided that I was going to stop trying to appease the people around me because I don't think that they were ever going to be happy with me, you know? I was breaking into a space where people made it really clear that they were kind of uncomfortable being around me. And being a Muslim woman and trying to carry this weight of combating stereotypes just by existing in spaces where people are like, we don't really want you here. And at some point, and maybe this is with age, with wisdom, who knows, but I just kind of decided, I don't really care what you think. And it's not even that I was verbal with this pushback, you know. I just decided I wasn't going to answer really weird questions about, you know, my faith and my religion in public spaces because I felt like it was a way to demean my faith. It was a way to, you know, put me on the spot and harass me in group situations because I felt like it was like a level of inauthenticity. You know, if you were genuine in your questioning, you would ask me when we were on the elevator in private as opposed to waiting for like team dinner or something like that. So at some point I was like, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to be myself. And it was the best decision I made. Similar to what Crystal said, I felt like I watched my career take a turn. I had, you know, the most successful years where I've climbed to like world number 6. And this happened with learning to be comfortable in my own skin and not feel like I need everyone to be happy with me. It's like, they don't want you here and that's okay. I'm gonna, you know, be comfortable with myself and I'm gonna ride out for my different communities, whether that be all my girls from Jersey or, you know, us as like, you know, Americans or whoever it is. I just felt like I was going to be comfortable in my own skin.
Is that something that you flipped a switch on, or is it something that you continuously had to go back to and revisit and remind yourself of that strength?
Oh no, I like flipped a switch. It was like night and day. I was like, you know what, this isn't working. And I had I revealed a lot. I wrote a memoir recently in my book, Proud. And
is this before or after launching the clothesline?
Right. This is very recent. My book came out in July. And in my book, I talk about mental health. I talk about suffering from depression for 2 years. And I felt like this is something that I needed. I needed to say enough is enough. And in making that decision, having that moment, I was putting myself in a better situation in terms of my own mental health. And in turn, I watched my abilities as an athlete kind of, you know, climb. I had the most successful year of my life prior to the Olympics. You know, in our Olympic qualification, I won more medals than I had in my entire career. And I think that's because I changed the way I thought about myself.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Love that. For you, Katie?
Career's
young, but...
Yeah, not to steal what anyone else is saying, but it's the truth is I think I would have earlier in my career been more, spent less energy worrying about if other people thought I was good enough, if other people thought I was worthy, if other people thought I could do it, because I spent so much energy worrying about that I wasn't spending energy just getting better as a coach, getting better as a person. And I think so many times we get so wrapped up in what other people are thinking of us and what, you know, am I good enough? And if we would just stop and be vulnerable to our weaknesses and not have this imposter syndrome where when are they going to find out I'm really not as good as I think I am? Everybody is worried about their weaknesses. Everybody is worried about what everyone else is thinking. We have to just stop and acknowledge our weaknesses and get better and just and spend our energy tunneling it on the things that need that energy. And if we could do that, we would all improve in every area of our life.
Absolutely. I think now we're going to turn it to the audience to open it up for some questions if you guys have some. So we're going to send a mic around and just raise your hand if there's something that you want to ask these fabulous women. Yep, in the back, I think the first lady.
Hi, thank you guys all for being here. I'm a sophomore at Harvard where I also play soccer. And my question for Katie is, how do you define and embrace your femininity while also staying in such a masculine organization?
What femininity? No, I'm just kidding. You know, I think it really just comes down to being who you are. It's not about being feminine. It's not about being masculine. One thing you'll find about the game of tackle football, I'm going to say tackle
That's
football,
good.
is that it's one of the most feminine hating in a way. And I say that if you think about the language that's used, everything that's stereotypically a woman, you're soft, you're not aggressive, you whatever, you hit like a girl, you throw like a girl. I mean, everything that is in sports in general, but football especially is just so masculine driven. But you have to forget all of that and just be who you are. And for me, being a woman and that, just being different, I think diversity in a coaching staff in general brings so much to a team. And so I'm not worried about trying to be feminine or be, a certain way. I'm just bringing my personality daily, and that's what I focus on. And I think everybody receives that really well in the organization.
Thank you. Next question? In the middle there.
My question is for all of you. Working in a male-dominated field, did you ever face sexism, and how did you handle it?
I don't want to keep being the one to talk, so I can talk to it.
I mean, similar to what Katie said, I think that and when I think of myself in fencing, right, you're trying to be yourself, but at the same time, there's a lot of things attributed to you just being, like, if you're good, right, it's like, oh, she's super aggressive, or if you maintain your strength and your confidence, even throughout training with guys in practice, oh, she's such a bitch, right? And these are things that you just kind of, I don't know, for me, I just kind of took it in stride and would never even acknowledge it, because those type of derogatory comments that people over and over attribute to us as women, to me, are not even worth, my voice. I'm not even going to acknowledge the fact that you're upset that you lost to me because I'm a woman, and this is why, it's them lashing out, and I don't know, I think that as athletes, especially as fencers, that's something we deal with on the training side, and on the competition side, it's just it's a whole nother can of worms. I kind of see, it's frustrating because we have a lot of male referees. There are very, very, very few female referees. And I hate to say this, but they're not any good. Like the 2 female referees that we have, when you have them, you're like, oh God, I hope that, she's able to get 1 or 2 calls right. I know that's so awful, but it's true.
That's a really good, message as well, if I can jump in. Sorry, that was rude of me.
No, it's good.
But I do feel that way too, because in the women's game, we're obviously trying to make that push and get a lot of female refs out there, but ultimately I think we're not doing ourselves any justice just saying, she's a woman, let's give her an opportunity. Yeah. I think so that we don't get into this women versus men kind of thing I just think women fight for equality because they just want to be given that opportunity to prove that they are deserving of it. I don't want to be given a role just because I'm a female and just because they're trying to equal everything out. Yeah. I think it's kind of natural for you when you're like, oh, we have the 2 female refs that just happen not to be good. It's nothing against that they're females. It's like, if they're not up to par, they're not up to par. And I think it's important as women, we don't just take roles because you're trying to be the token female of the group. It's about us proving and knowing that we're good enough and given that role because we are deserving, not because we're female, just because of anything else other than that we are deserving of the role.
Well, I think that how you fix that is you have professional athletes like yourself. When you do retire, you maybe decide, hopefully some of us decide to referee. Because if you're not good at your sport, yeah, me neither. I have no plans on refereeing.
Verbally abused at all times.
No, I would never referee. But I'm saying that hopefully somebody will, because when you have people who have not competed at the highest level, who are not good at the game, decide to referee, it's problematic.
Yes, definitely.
And just to touch back on the sexism part, for me, like I was saying, the language that's used in the NFL oftentimes can seem like it's degrading to women, or you hear that's gay, or that you play like a pussy, or whatever it might be, excuse my language. But for me, the way that I've kind of balanced that is you have to understand that a lot of those things are coming out of ignorance, and oftentimes they don't really know what they're saying. And if we come at it very defensive and ready to fight, ready to tell them they said something wrong, you become a person where they can't be themselves around you. And I know that me being in that room, in that coach's room, in that meeting, in that team room, is making more of a difference than me sitting outside the door. And when people feel like they have to be different around you, I'm telling you, the language will change. The way people talk by changing the game, by creating more opportunities for people. And we have to come at it at a place of forgiveness and understanding, and not lash out at people that we think are saying. Like one time someone came up and was like, "Oh, that's gay," and if you didn't know, I'm a lesbian. And I was like, "Oh, why? Because it likes boys?" And then he was like, "Oh, no, that's not what I meant." And he never said it again. You know, but if I would have, you know, came at him and said, "Oh, you're homophobic," whatever, I don't think I would have felt like I was a safe person to talk to. So I think it's really important when dealing with sexism. A lot of it's education, communication, and just really getting down, taking away the ignorance.
And moving to Iran, because everything is done behind closed doors and men and women are always separated, we don't really deal with that situation. I think the fact that we exist in a role to be, you know, a coach or, you know, an athlete, men really like it and they want to help as much as possible. Like recently we fought to have, you know, a male technical director because there's not that much experience yet for the women's coaching staff. So when the men started coaching us in Iran, you know, they're really into it, and you know, they don't look at us. Oh, there are a bunch of girls. They yelled. You know, they tried to like have like all these like tactical boards and everything. They are treating us as if they would treat any other team that they would have. So the fact that, you know, they know that we can play and that we exist, that confrontation hasn't happened yet as far as, oh, boys and girls and men and women. So I think it's just more of a supporting factor because they want us to continue and grow on the world stage, especially in football. So to come back to your question, yeah, we don't deal too much with it yet.
Yet. Well, maybe we have time for maybe one or two more questions. Yep, you in front here.
Hi, I've got a tough question. So I have found that when I want to demonstrate that I'm an ally towards somebody, that I only have the opportunity to present that after something negative has happened. So you directly mentioned the slander that came, and then you said something and corrected it. How can we do a better job of demonstrating that we want to be allies before something negative happens?
It's a really good question.
Yeah, that is. I would say just being aware of the way that we talk is huge, because the way that we communicate, the things that we see on TV, we need more people that are aware of the things that we see. Like, for example, when I played in Seattle, there was a fan that was holding a poster that said, "Good job, ladies," and you know, oh, it's funny, whatever. And then you stop and think about it and you're like, wow, that is really degrading. And one thing, and I was really the only one that noticed it, but if you take ladies and you put any other type of demographic in there and you say that you're using that as a form of disrespect, that would not be tolerated. And to use and say, "Good job, ladies, I'm making fun of you as a team because I'm calling you women," we need more people who are not women to see that and think that that's a problem. And so I think just being more aware, and it's not that people around, it's not like the men around didn't support women, they just didn't realize it. And so we just need more people who are aware and can prevent some of those things by just noticing the things in everyday life that happen every single day. And the more we can do that, the more change we'll make.
And I would say, like, not subscribing to things that have become normal. Like, I don't know, I'm thinking about it in the context of maybe not like misogynistic moments, but thinking of it in the terms of like bigoted moments. Like Hollywood always portrays Muslims as terrorists, right? Maybe don't go see that movie anymore, because I'm sure if you could put that in the context of your own identity. If, like, I grow tired of seeing that role played out time and time again, but as a global community, we've learned to accept it. So don't go buy tickets to that movie. Don't watch that show that you love, because it's super offensive. And I know that I'm tired of watching it, or tired of seeing it, so I personally like don't even subscribe to it. I won't go see a movie that, you know, shows the Muslim community in that light, because I believe that it's, you know, I don't know, it's discriminatory, and it's very myopic, and not, it doesn't show Muslims in their true light.
That's why education is so important, because I'm sure a lot of people who maybe watch those shows have no idea that side of things, you know, and that's why it's
how not
yeah,
like how
no,
could
I
you
know.
not know? It's crazy.
Yeah,
you know,
it's the ignorance that's out there, and you know, I've heard people talk about, like, in terms of being gay, people who don't go eat at Chick-fil-A because of it. You know, I love Chick-fil-A personally. I eat it all the time. But there are allies out there, and I completely support them. I think it's amazing who refuse to eat there until they, you know, change some of the sponsorships and things like that.
But it's kind of difficult in these times to understand who is your ally, because in some instances they come from a different, you know, angle, thinking that, or you're thinking that they're going to help and support you, but at the same time, it's not going to happen. Like for example, with Iranian women's football, you know, we have a lot of support, but no one has come forward to actually say that we're allies. We're going to work together to make sure that, you know, the women can, you know, play more internationally. And I think this is the whole stigma of, like you said, of the whole Islamic side of it. Like, why are you even playing in the first place? And another point that you came out with is the education. So I feel like as a head coach, I'm not just the coach. When I travel anywhere, it's a matter of me educating as many people as possible, you know, like on TEDx or, you know, on different like interview posts. But it's just a matter of educating and bringing the world closer. And we can't do that because we have so many different, you know, devices to do it on. So I feel like it's just a matter of me pushing a little bit harder and educating a little bit more, just so people can understand where we come from. And not where we come from as the country, but where we come from as far as the point of view of why sports is huge and how much it can impact people or a country even.
Yeah, definitely. Just being more proactive, and we've all brushed up on it, but being educated. And that is the great thing about sports, I do think, is it honestly almost puts you in a position to come across so many different people of different walks in life. And that's why it's important, especially me being on a soccer team. I'm around tons of women, obviously, every single training and things like that, and it's becoming a way more diverse group. And I think for me that is amazing, because, you know, as strong as you can be, it is difficult when you only see the same types of people and things like that. But when everyone comes together and everyone is from so many different walks of life, different shades, colors, everything, the conversation and the norms, that's what the norm becomes, you know? And the more we can just continue being kind to each other, continue not making any judgments off anyone, will always kind of push us in the right direction.
Exactly. Last question, we're gonna make it quick. You guys have been so fantastic. They told me to wrap it, I said no, one more.
Talking too much.
Yeah, go ahead, right here in the front. Good running.
Katie, you talked a little bit about how you feel like you have to prove yourself a little more than the others. What have all of you done specifically to earn the respect of groups that look at you differently?
For me, it's putting my head down and doing my work the best way I know how, and finding where I'm valuable. I think oftentimes if you're in a position where you're one of the, like right now, I think I'm the only full-time woman in coaching in the NFL, you get this, oh, I'm happy to be here, but you can't just be happy to be here. I want to be on a team, not because I'm a woman. I want to be on a coaching staff because I add value. And any job that you guys go into, I challenge you to find value where you're valuable. Where can my boss say, I cannot be replaced? And if you find that, you will find success at any level and you will continue to grow. But the more that we just stay complacent with where we are, we're not going to grow. And I think that's, you know, if you take anything away, is find your value. And that's what I had to do.
Go ahead, Crystal.
Yeah, I would say for me, especially as a person of color, I play a sport that it's now becoming more diverse, but it was not always the case. I've played on many teams where I was the only black girl on the team, and that was normal to me, you know. And I think times have changed. There's way more diversity, but when I was growing up, I was always brought up, not even playing soccer, but just as a person of color in society, that you always have to prove yourself, you know. I always felt like I had to do above and beyond things, get really great grades. When I was applying for college and things like that, even though I knew I would play soccer in school, I always felt like I got to do something above and beyond and not give anyone a reason to overlook me. And I think even now, as a professional soccer player on the women's national team, I still carry that with me, even though I feel like, you know, times have definitely changed since that day. But I do feel like I'm always just working on becoming the best person, the best player I can be. And that comes in so many different forms, you know, and it's about not just being stuck in your way, but going out of your way and really just making the environment that you're in even better. And the challenges that I face are minimum now, because I do feel like, you know, new norms are coming, and I think that's the progression we need to continue on, is not taking steps backwards, but pushing forward.
And just to add on this, you know, I think all four of us have pushed down a lot of boundaries and a lot of walls. And, you know, like you said, this becomes the new norm. So to have our values actually established, I think what we did is something so big that people who like are able to find that path won't realize how good they have it after, you know, we've had to do all the fighting and the arguing just to make something that would be normal, you know, easy and accessible to the rest of the athletes that come behind us. But I'm so honored to be, you know, sitting next to all three of you, and of course you. So thank you for the invitation.
Yes. And to Crystal's point, I think the pressure that you feel, I think that's something we as specifically black female athletes oftentimes feel, that pressure to, you have to be exceptional in order to be accepted. But to answer your question, I think that hard work outshines everything. And so to feel that pressure of being the best and wanting to achieve that, it's like people may not want you there, but if you're the best, you're there, you become the captain. If you're there, you win an Olympic medal, and it becomes what it is. It's like you have to let your hard work show up every single time, and let that, you know, precede you.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate the honesty, because you guys got down to the core of what got you to where you are. And I think they sit up here and they're speaking as though what they've achieved is normal. Like Kat said, this is far from normal. But they are exactly like you. They had self-doubt. They had moments where they had to push through, and they've learned a lot in the process. So there's a lot that you guys can take away from them. And I think we need to give them a round of applause. And I think we should stand up, because this is a really amazing group of women. So I'm serious. Now you guys are free to go. Lunch is going to be upstairs. It's going to be served, and please be back here at 1:30.